I've just done the LPC, I've got all these law loans, I need to just get a job. So I went to the interview and they were like, oh, well, we've got a conveyancing assistant position. And they were like, and it could lead to a training contract. So I was like, yeah, until you've got that, there's no guarantee you're going to make it to solicitor.
You hear people say, like, yeah, I want to be a solicitor, I want to get into the law. It is competitive, right?
Doing the LPC was amazing. That's when I knew that I was definitely meant to be a solicitor, but just finding that training contract, which is, like you said, super competitive and not guaranteed. It was a calculated risk, really. The best way to describe it, and I had a client recently who was Canadian, and she said to me at the end, Claudia, it's been such a different experience to how it is sort of in the US and Canada, because for them, they sign the contract, they're locked in at that point, done.
So you said that in the pandemic, you had a caseload, given time about 200 cases. How do you deal with that mentally?
It took such a massive toll, and at one point, I think for me, I mean, I've had some health scares over the years. When I was a trainee solicitor, I was literally about to qualify. It was like April. I just finished my advocacy part of my professional skills course. I was so excited. I was like finally going to qualify as a solicitor, and then I got hit with this. I had a flu, and it turned into this neurological syndrome called Guillain-Barré syndrome, GBS. So I ended up in hospital for a month. I couldn't walk. My speech was slurred, my face was frozen, I was completely incapacitated. I think you never realise how truly resilient you are until you actually go through something, and then you come out the other side and you're like, I made it, I got through that. And I think you have to really feed off that for as long as you can and just keep going.
Yeah, we've got our ears wide open, minds ready to explore, get some information. I want to dive right in. Today, our guest is Claudia Gallo. She's come all the way from Wales, which is, I'm just extremely grateful for that. So gratitude out to you. Tell me about yourself, Claudia, what you do and your journey to becoming that.
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, thank you so much for having me. It was well worth the trek. It's so nice to meet you in person. It's been back and forth for a little while now. So thank you so much. And yeah, I'm a residential property solicitor. I actually work as a consultant these days. So I'm a little bit more sort of flexible on what I do, which is great. And yeah, my journey into law really started. I actually did a criminology degree in Leicester, so not too far down the road there. And then I think I realised quite quickly, looking into that sort of crime, it was so fascinating, but it wasn't necessarily the angle I wanted to go down. I did I did the graduate diploma in law, then the LPC to become a solicitor. And then I was sort of thinking about what area am I going to go into, where am I going to go? And, you know, life always gives you sort of a split path sometimes. And I was on the verge of moving to Oxford to go and do crime and family law, training contract there.
Oh, wow.
And then I went for an interview, literally 15 minutes from my house, like walkable distance, with a local law firm, sort of high street firm, and went for an interview for like a wills and probate paralegal position, because I was like, I just need to get a job. I've just done the LPC, I've got all these law loans, I need to just get a job. So I went to the interview and they were like, oh, well, we've got a conveyancing assistant position. And I was like, okay. I was like, that sounds interesting. And they were like, and it could lead to a training contract. So I was like, yes, because they were like gold dust, you know. There's no, until you've got that, there's no guarantee you're going to make it to solicitor. So yeah, so I took that one basically. I was like, walking to work in my wellies every day, because you just never know what the weather's going to do in Wales. Honestly, the whole office would have told you she wore wellies to work every day.
Really?
Until one New Year's Eve, and I made a New Year's resolution that I was going to start wearing heels. And then I did. And then the irony is now I work from home constantly. So I'm just in my slippers all day.
Well, but you could have combined those heel wellies. Have you seen the ones?
No,
where
I haven't, but that would have been,
There you go. So it's just kind of merged the two. But I mean, that's super interesting, isn't it? Because, you know, you hear people say, like, yeah, I want to be a solicitor, I want to get into the law. It is super competitive, right? You know, I don't know what the percentages are from people, you know, going to do the university, to the LPC, to actually getting a training contract. I mean, what do you know?
I don't know what they would be now, but back then it just felt doing the LPC was amazing. That's when I knew that I was definitely meant to be a solicitor, because you're learning, but you're also learning how to be a solicitor, like how to interview clients, how to do advocacy, all of these property. We had I remember learning how to do an exchange of contracts in a classroom, and everybody was like holding up a phone like this, like, what's Formula B? What does this even mean? Because it doesn't make any sense when it's out of context. And then I remember being actually a trainee and being at the firm and doing my first exchange and suddenly being like, light bulb moment, this makes sense now, it's not that hard.
It's dropped.
Yeah, when you're trying to imagine it in that classroom scenario, it's so different to actually practically doing it. But the LPC preps you for that, which is great. But I knew that was for me, so it was just finding that training contract, which is, like you said, super competitive and not guaranteed. It was a calculated risk, really. You don't know.
This is it, isn't it? And I know certainly, I mean, you mentioned there about exchange of contracts, like, obviously in the role I do, we talk about it. It's just something you guys do, to get us over the point where they're committed. And from our perspective, that's it. It's like, we're all good. But I don't know what that involves, the actual mechanics, or, when we're talking in the daytime on the phone and you're like, I'm doing this and this. It's just, to me, it's just, it just kind of happens. And that's the magic of it, really. I mean, you mentioned there, you're doing criminology. And a lot of people I spoke to that have done that, they always have a fascination with like serial killer programs. Are you the same, or?
I just love Miss Marple. I just love a good Agatha Christie. I mean, it's really funny because when you're in that world of criminology, you become so desensitized to it.
Really?
And I think for me, that was quite a big factor in law, would I just become really hardened and cold to this whole thing that I'm dealing with? And I think for me, is I'm quite a fluffy, warm person. I'm not, I mean, could you imagine, like, it's just, I wasn't going to go into the police or the prison service. It's the people that are impacted by it that fascinates me, and it's helping people that I was interested in. And I think there's many different ways you can do that in law, and we do it day in, day out in property. It's you literally are with people at the best moment of their life, buying their dream home, first time buyers, or a family, sizing up to a bigger home in the countryside for the kids. But then you're with people for the worst moments of their lives, selling houses of loved ones, people whose homes have been repossessed. It's such a journey that you go on with them. And you need empathy. You need to be able to be a people person. You can't just be behind the keyboard warrior. You have to be on the phone to people. You have to be, hand-holding people through the process is so important.
This is it. And you've said there about empathy. And I think that in the role is something that a lot of people might not have, and they're doing the role. And it's something that's so important because it is a very emotional transaction.
Hugely.
I mean, I'm dealing with people, a lot of the same people that you are, and they are, the whole life is revolving around it for that point of time, isn't it? To get this thing that it might not be fully possible, but there's a way, and it happens, and it gets through. And sometimes it's emotionally exhausting, right? And I can think of a case that we're working on together that is that, and you know what I'm talking about, where it is just that kind of, do you know what I mean? And
it's the whole world though. And the way I think of it is, you're just a small part of one person's journey. Like, I heard a statistic a few years ago that on average, a person moves 5 times in their life. So if you think of that, we're part of their journey 1 in 5 times. And usually they come back to you if it's been a good experience. So sometimes it's twice. And that's huge. That's such a massive impact on somebody's life. And I think that's the way you have to see it. It's not just another bill. It's not just another statistic. These are real people that have emotions. And sometimes they're going to be stressed. Sometimes they're going to shout down the phone because they take it out on you because something's gone. The removals company has been booked, but now they're not, they can't exchange, so they can't complete on the date they want. It happens. It happens day in, day out. We're constantly dealing with it. So you do have to bear in mind that you're going to sometimes be the brunt of their emotional situation.
And I think it comes from not understanding, what it is you're actually doing as well. I mean, could you explain to us what a conveyancing solicitor actually does? Because I'm a mortgage broker. I know we use you to transfer the title from one owner to another, but that's pretty much the extent of my kind of legal knowledge.
It's a huge part of it. I think the best way to describe it, and I had a client recently who was Canadian, and she said to me at the end, I won't do the accent because I can't do it, so I'm not even going to try. It's probably, I'll do the accent later for you. But she said to me, she's like, at the end, she's like, Claudia, it's been such a different experience to how it is sort of in the US and Canada, because for them, they sign the contract, they're locked in at that point, done. And then they're on their own. They've got to sort the financing, they've got to investigate the title, they've got to do the survey after they're locked in. Whereas here, your solicitor has got your back. And I think that's what people need to appreciate, is that we are there to act in the best interest of our clients in a huge investment. So not only am I me personally, I deal with everything from start to finish. So I will welcome the client obviously on board. We'll then get all the paperwork in from the seller's solicitor. So they'll give us like a pack of information. That's everything legally we need to know about the property. So I'll investigate that information then, read through it, report back to the client. At the same time, you need to have your surveyor on board. That is so important. And people sometimes skip that step, but it's another expert opinion. You need that. It's a totally different situation to what I do. I'm just looking at things legally. I'm not looking at whether your walls are going to fall down.
Like me, just looking at the finance.
Yeah, exactly. But it's a team effort. You need to work with all these different parties as a team. And that's what I say to my clients is your mortgage broker, your estate agent, me, your surveyor. We are all a team and we will get you through this, because we need to find out everything to do with that property. The onus is on the buyer if you are buying a property, obviously. Buyer beware. That's the phrase that we always use. So, you've got to find out everything you can, and you need to do that before exchange of contracts. So that is just the point where you are legally bound. You're locked in at that point. Yeah,
it's like to give the reference you gave to about Canada or America, the point of signing a contract.
Yeah, and then they do everything else afterwards. That's crazy to me, because if something goes wrong, you're locked in. Whereas here, we are constantly looking out for things for the client. So they employ us to investigate things on their behalf legally that could go wrong, could be an issue. But we are problem solvers as well. And that is a huge part of what I do, is solving problems for people. We hit a legal issue. How do we overcome it?
Yeah.
And ultimately, it's not very often I have to say to somebody, your property is, you can't proceed. Usually we can find a way. But if you can't, then obviously I'm there to say, you don't want to touch this one. Go and have another look, And
I think that's important, isn't it, as well? Like telling clients, look, actually, this is probably not a good one. I can think of one of my really good clients. He's an investor. And he was looking at a property with Japanese knotweed. And we've had this conversation previously, and it's like, don't touch it.
Yeah, like please don't, because it's just not worth it.
And I think it's those conversations that they value as well.
Honest conversations.
Good, honest advice. I mean, what I really like about you is, you offer a personal end-to-end service. I mean, that's not really out there in the industry. I mean, it tends to be generic emails, generic telephone numbers, going through to practically a call center of people.
Yeah.
Why have you guys taken this different approach to others in the industry?
I think it's just, you get the results. It's ultimately, as as we've discussed before, my fees are higher than sort of your average conveyancer. But that is because the fees are lower with other firms, because they've been driven down over the years, people competing with each other. But that's not the best thing for the client. Why on earth would you want to spend less on your conveyancing when you're making such a large investment? I said it earlier, if you buy cheap, you buy twice. If you, you have to look at the small print as well. Sometimes people will be given a quote. And it will look cheaper than our quote, but our quotes read like a menu. They break everything down. Whereas you look at the other quote, and in the fine print, it'll say these additional fees will be added at the end. So they're not actually cheaper than us. They're just hiding it better. But we're transparent about that. We're upfront with it. We have honest discussions with clients about fees. Transparency is so important in what we do as solicitors, but I pride myself on that with my clients. I'll say, this is what my fees are. This is because you're paying for my expertise. You're paying for the hours that I spent at law school, the hours that I've spent training as a solicitor. That's what you're buying. Like, why would you not want to buy into that for a house purchase?
Absolutely. It's the knowledge and it's the experience, isn't it? And, I think this is probably one of the most expensive transactions most people will ever make.
Yeah.
Why would you skimp out on the legal side of things? It doesn't make sense to me of why you would do that. So I always, suggest that if people are looking for a good service, that they come to you. And in instances against their better judgment, they decide to go down the cheap route, and inevitably there's always issues, there's always delays. And I get it, some people might not be able to afford it, but if you're stretching that much for a house, I mean, we're talking a few £100 difference. It's not thousands and thousands more.
No, it's not thousands more. It's absolutely not. And that's the thing, is you see some people going for fees that are looking like they're £700.
Yeah.
We're not that much more when you think about it, but it's just worth it. The benefit of that is I'm able to carry a lesser caseload, because caseload is so important. That's what allows you to have more time with your clients, because I've run caseloads where I've had 200 files. I did that in the pandemic and it broke me. It was so bad. You end up with burnt out lawyers, unhappy clients. It's just, there's no avoiding it. So this was a no-brainer for me, being able to work in this way, having 45 to 55 files, even up to 60 is still manageable. But anything sort of over that, when you're talking over hundreds, because there's so many variables, we're spinning so many plates, there's so many parties that we're liaising with and things we're looking out for. And if you take one person's emotional house purchase and times that by 45, that's a lot of very emotional people.
All coming
and there's a lot
you.
of hand-holding that you need to do. So you've only got so many hours in the day. And as much as I move like a Tasmanian devil most of the day, as my partner Alex would tell you, there's never enough hours. So the smaller caseload helps. So higher fees, because we have to account for that. But
so you said that in the pandemic, you had a caseload at any given time, about 200 cases. How'd you deal with that mentally? Like,
it took such a toll. It took such a massive toll. And at one point, I think for me, I mean, I've had some health scares over the years. When I was a trainee solicitor, I was literally about to qualify. It was like April. I just finished my advocacy part of my professional skills course. I was so excited. I was like finally going to qualify as a solicitor. And then I got hit with this, I had a flu. And it turned into this neurological syndrome called Guillain-Barré syndrome, GBS. So I ended up in hospital for a month. I couldn't walk. My speech was slurred. My face was frozen. I was completely incapacitated. I was lucky I didn't end up in intensive care. So I had to basically get through that. And then the only thing that kept me going at the time, because I've always been a career girl, like this means everything to me. I put my heart and soul into it. And the only thing that kept me going through that time was I must get out of this bed and I must qualify as a solicitor. That's my dream. That's what I want to do. And that's what I did. So I spent a month in hospital, came out. I went back to work in the May. And that helped, actually. Just getting back to my job and just like doing what I was meant to be doing was massively important. And then qualified in the July on St. Swithin's Day. So, but I think when you've been through something like that and you've had the resilience to get back up and carry on with your life, when you find yourself in a situation where suddenly you're mentally struggling and you're 27 years old and you're like in a pandemic, like what's going on? I literally thought I was having a heart attack at my desk. I was like, this is not normal for a 27-year-old. I'm not an unhealthy person. Like I shouldn't be feeling like this. And it was the stress. And from then on, it was just like, I have to try and find a job that doesn't make me feel like this, because nobody should feel like that. And it goes back to like, in the pandemic, there was this whole be kind thing as well. You never know what somebody's going through.
Absolutely.
We need more of that again. We need more of that. It's gone. For some reason, there's a lot of, the way people speak to each other, that needs to come back too, because it has a huge impact on your mental health. When you're dealing with other people's stressful scenarios, we're human beings at the end of the day. And I think because we're behind the computer more or over the phone, we're not seeing the clients in person as much. There's a forgetfulness to...
Absolutely. I mean, firstly, wow, that's amazing. Absolutely, that... The determination and resilience that you can just take from what you said there is absolutely mind-blowing.
Thanks,
it really is. I mean, to be so ill, you're borderline intensive care in the hospital, but the only thing on your mind, your dream, is I'm going to finish and I'm going to qualify and I'm going to graduate through law school and I'm going to get through this. To the point where you are then sitting at the desk feeling like you're going to have a heart attack, but you're still going. That's absolutely immense.
Thank you.
And that just really shows your dedication to that career path, doesn't it? And I know, typically, in times gone by, that kind of industry has been male dominated. I mean, that must have been another thing. Have you ever faced anything that's kind of come up against, like, where it's been difficult?
Do you know what? There's a lot more ladies in the profession now.
Really?
When I qualified, there was actually, I'm sure the percentage split was there's more female solicitors than male. And property in particular is very female dominated. All the firms I've worked for, there's a lot of, female girl power out there in conveyancing. And I think that's really nice. But I mean, sometimes, in the same with everything, I think women do, sometimes you come up against people that I've had lawyers in the past say to my face, oh, well, you did the graduate diploma in law, you didn't do a law degree, so you're not good enough, kind of thing. And it's like, well, I know lots of senior solicitors who took that route, and someone who's always been a mentor of mine, he went down that route. So it's just, you can have two solicitors in the same firm that have gone down different routes, and there could be a real snobbery to the whole, SILAC, so Chartered Legal Exec, and, one of my really close colleagues, she's qualified SILAC. She's amazing. She's no different to me, where people say we're like the same person, literally. There's no difference. But you do come up against these things, but it's a very old school way of thinking, and I think, things have moved forward now. Everyone needs to be respectful of each other, and whatever route you've come through, because I think, yes, I did a criminology degree, but it's given me a perspective on the world that you wouldn't take if I'd done a law degree. So I bring something different to the table. I think everybody coming from a slightly different discipline brings something different.
Hey guys, I just want to take 30 seconds out of our video today to talk to you about today's sponsor. Our sponsor is QB Rooms. They've produced this video for us today. So if you're in need of a podcast, content creation, or music videos, or in fact videos for anything, you need to get in touch with QB Rooms. The link is down below now. If you click on this link, it will take you to QB Rooms website. Well, I think this is it, isn't it? If they've got a course and it's not a prerequisite that you've had to do a law degree, so why should it matter? Clearly, it's not important.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it'd be a prerequisite.
And you do the graduate diploma in law, which is a law degree squashed into 1 year, which I can hands down say, and I think everybody on my course would have said, the worst year of our lives. Like, so intense.
Wow.
So intense. I would never do that again. It was a once in a lifetime for me. It was wild.
The worst year of your life.
It was crazy. It was just so busy. It was just really intense. So whatever we didn't do on the law degree, I think we more than made up for it in hours of just studying, and the exams are horrific. And we had to do them all by hand then as well. That wasn't even that long ago.
So this wasn't even typed. This is pen and ink. One of my clients, she's brilliant. She used to call it, Adam, they're stuck in the quill and pen era. Some of these solicitors. I was like, yeah. And she's older, but she's really like IT smart.
Yeah.
And she used to laugh about that. But it's. Yeah, I mean, you mentioned there that you've always been that like career girl. What was your goal? I mean, do you ever see yourself maybe having a family with Alex, or having kids, or is it just the goal, or would one sacrifice the other? I mean,
do you know what? For me, I think when I started in property, and I think when I qualified, I was making the decision because I was really interested in litigation as well. I used to go to court and do possession orders, and I loved going to court. It gave me a real thrill. I really enjoyed it. It was exciting. But then every decision leads to another decision for a reason, I think. And for me, the main reason I chose property is so that I could have that family in the future. I think that is really important to me. I think the main thing with my career, going back to when I was in school, I was like, I want to be independent. I want to be able to, if I want something, I can go get it for myself, because that's who I am. Don't need anybody to provide for me. I'm going to just go out there and get it for myself, which is what I've always been like. But in the back of my mind, I am such a home bird and so family orientated. And a lot of my friends have got kids now. I don't have any kids. Well, a stepson almost. Because Al's got a little one. But I think for me, it was property will enable me to have a family and, eventually the correct work-life balance. But there was a time where I wanted to be like, climb the ladder. I want to be a director. I want to be a partner. I want this, I want that. And actually the last couple of years have really sort of humbled me and made me realize that actually you don't need to go right to the top. You can be happy where you are. And actually right now, for me, this is a dream come true. I am so happy and so comfortable where I am. Not complacent, because you can never be complacent in property. Every day's a school day.
That's it.
But just so really, really content. And I think striving for like super happiness is really hard, like in terms of mental health. But if you can strive for a level of contentment, I think that's a really good place to be.
Absolutely. And I think this is the thing, isn't it, with mental health? It's, you know, when you don't know, you could think, look, you know, it's always just straight line or upward trajectory. But that's never the case, because it's actually up and down. And that's how it is. You know, you can't be happy unless you experience sadness, because then you have to have the opposite.
You don't know what makes you happy then if you've not been the opposite.
Exactly. I mean, what kind of self-care and things do you do to keep your mental health in check, you know, and to keep yourself from getting in that place where you feel like you're going to have a heart attack at the desk because you've got 200 angry people in a pandemic?
Well, I don't have 200 angry people anymore, which is good. I have, you know, it's usually a maximum of about 45. But I think working from home has really helped for me. I always thought I was the girl that loved going to the office every day, and I'd walk in and be like, morning, make the tea. As a trainee, I was so chipper, honestly. I must have driven people insane. There's probably a few people that would be like, yeah, she was definitely annoying. But yeah, now it's sort of like being able to, I think, I'm not constantly having somebody watching over me. Like I'm a consultant now. It's like a real grown up, mature situation. You know, the people that I work with are incredible. They have given me the most amazing opportunity. And if I hadn't done that job where I was thinking I was having a heart attack at the desk, I wouldn't have met certain people that enabled me to be in this job now. So everything for a reason, and I don't regret any moment of the journey that I've been on, because I wouldn't be sat here right now with you telling this story, really. So yeah, I think it's just working from home has been lovely. I've never worked from home full time before. I thought it would drive me insane. It's just, I think being surrounded by your own possessions, it's like a relaxing vibe. Like I try to keep my office as tranquil as possible. I've got my little dogs that help. I mean, never take away the therapy that a dog can give you.
Absolutely agree, 100%.
They are just wonderful. I think supportive family and friends help, people that understand. My mum has put hours into talking to me about conveyancing, or me just ranting at her, basically. Now Alex has to suffer the same fate, unfortunately for him, but he puts up with it. They don't know what I'm talking about half the time, but it's somebody being a listening ear, because I am a listening ear for so many people. So I just need to be heard. And other than that, I think just getting outside, getting some fresh air. When I take a break and I go outside the house, I'm like, oh, this is nice. I need more of this. And I think if you can hit that, that really helps in the middle of the day. Even at the end of the day, just decompression. I'm always been a massive podcast listener. So I've got my mindfulness podcast that I listen to. And if I'm having a really stressful day, I'll just stick one of those on in the middle of the day. I'm not in an office with anybody else. I'm not bothering anyone with my podcast. So I can do that now. Take breaks. That's what Alex would say to me. Work blocks and take breaks.
He's right. He's
right.
I need to take some of Alex's advice, because I am having ADHD. I am terrible for time management, and
he definitely has undiagnosed ADHD.
Probably then,
So he gets it.
Yes. This is, we need structure, but we're terrible at creating structure. What motivates you in your profession? What is it? What's the why? I want to know why.
I think firstly, early on in my career, it was achieving that independence. I think my family, being able to provide for my family, that's a real big one for me. I want to be able to give, you know, one day a family, kids, everything that they ever wanted. You know, my parents gave me everything. I was really lucky as a child. My brother and I, we didn't want for anything. And I had my amazing grandmother, who is always like just been incredible. We lost her like 8 years ago now, but she was like my second mum, and she was always there. So we were very lucky. I want my kids to have the same. But other than that, it is the people. It's the people that I work with who just motivate me every day, because they are so phenomenal at what they do. And it's the clients, because it's the little conversations you have with clients. I've had an absolutely lovely client recently. She's just completed on her sale, and she is purchasing another property as well, but we're going with a different house. The last one wasn't her dream, so we're getting another one. And she said to me the other day, she was like, Claudia, every time I come off the phone to you, I always feel so happy. And that just made my day, because that's what more can you ask for? It's just, you know, when you get to celebrate other people's successes with them, it's incredible. But equally, when you get to be that person that's having a really hard conversation with somebody because they're going through a really hard situation, and you're there to lend that support, sometimes all people have got is their solicitor. Sometimes they haven't got anyone to talk to.
Absolutely.
So those people will always have my time of day. You know, I will always care for those people because they're my clients. I've got their best interests at heart, and I'm a softie, so
that's it. But
they're always going to get a listening ear from me.
It goes back to what you were saying earlier about having empathy. And that actually, people really appreciate that, don't they? Just to be, okay, I feel like I can talk to you on that. I mean, you've mentioned there about, you know, providing a listening ear for clients and that you're offering that kind of personal service. What other considerations should potential clients look out for when they are trying to select a solicitor?
I think my best piece of advice is do your research. You know, there's so much online about different firms now. So if you go to somebody for a quote, don't just get the quote in. First, try and have a chat with the person. Like we always, whenever we do an estimate of fees, we always try and get the client on the phone because, you know, you can build that rapport straight away. I mean, you've got to be a great communicator in this job. You have to be.
Agree.
So I think if you can do some research, get to know the person that you're going to be working with. It's difficult when you go to firms that are more sort of large scale, generic setup. It's difficult to get that. So if you're not a person that likes that vibe, then don't go for a solicitor that's in one of these large scale. Go for somebody like me who'll talk to you, you know. But I think do your research, read the reviews. You know, we always say, you know, go if you want to use us, if you want to see the proof that this is what the proof is, you know, in the pudding, go and read the reviews. They're all online. Most firms will have a review website or, you know, reviews on their websites themselves. So do your research, because otherwise you're not making an informed decision. And don't just jump the gun, you know, do some research, find out more, and then make a decision.
Well, it's like that case that we discussed the other day where before we'd even submit the application and we're saying, oh, you know, this client's a potential, and they're just locked in with someone else, paid fees, put money on the account. You think, whoa, we haven't even submitted an application yet.
Super fast. Like, and it's great when people are keen. I like when people are that keen because they, you know, they want to speak to you. They're organised. I've got some really fabulous first-time buyers at the moment, and they are. So, you know, we get together, we have a little conference call, all three of us, we talk through the questions. I think you can't beat some of those old-fashioned basics of make an appointment to speak to your solicitor, because your solicitor's prepared, you're prepared. That's the best conversation you can have. If you were going to go into a meeting or if you were going to go to your GP, you'd have things prepared that you were going to say, you'd book an appointment, you'd go. Same thing with your solicitor.
This is it. And I think it's I always see clients that get the best out of the process when they can like use you, because they've got that personal service. They know that you're at the end of a WhatsApp or a phone, and the experiences I've had when people have just gone to some generic mailbox, things get delayed. They don't. We'll be trying to submit an application. Who's the solicitor? I don't know the name. It's just this firm here.
It's
and
just thinking, info at insert generic email.
And I think, oh man, this is going to be pain in the backside. But I mean, that's the difference, isn't it? That makes the difference. Just really curious to know your thoughts on the current state of stamp duty, because quite often, until I mention it to clients, look, you have to pay this tax. What?
Yeah.
What, do I?
What is this stamp duty you speak of? Most people don't seem to know about it, and I think this goes back to the fact that what we mentioned briefly earlier is you don't learn this stuff at school. They don't do you know, they just don't do this kind of thing. It's screaming out for something. It's screaming out for some basic. I mean, please don't take my job away. I don't want them to do that. They need us to be here to support them, obviously. But I think kids are smart these days, and they want these goals. They want to buy houses. They want to get on the property market, but they don't know the basics of what the steps are. And it's when you break it down, it's not hard to explain. I think there are some people out there who struggle to break it down. There's a lot of solicitor speak and whatnot, but you can break it down, and then it would give, you know, people a chance to really start young and know what they want to do. You know, not everybody wants to go to uni. Some people want to just get into work as soon as they leave school, start saving for a house, but they don't know where to start. And yeah, stamp duty is one that confuses people. Then obviously bearing in mind that we're in Wales, we've got land transaction tax as well. Yeah. And I remember when that split into the two, that was when I was a trainee. So that was fun and games. And then obviously the stamp duty, and we know the economy has a massive knock-on effect of each other. And we saw that in the pandemic. So yes, I worked through that as well.
And no one likes to pay tax.
No one likes to pay tax, no.
And when it's called tax, land transaction tax as well, it makes it even more daunting that you have to pay it. Just want to get your thoughts. The phrase "solicitors have two speeds, slow and stop." What do you think about that stereotype?
Hilarious. Absolutely hilarious. I have to say that, Adam, because sometimes that could probably really rub some people up the wrong way.
Yeah.
And I think if you chuck that on LinkedIn, you would just have people in absolute uproar, literally, because there's always going to be conscientious, diligent solicitors out there.
Yeah.
And I have the great pleasure in dealing with most of them. You know, you have great conversations with people on the other side, and you're thinking, yes, this is why I do this job. We're working together. We're doing this. Of course, you're going to get the odd few that, you know, you don't hear from, you can't get hold of. I mean, that is a frustration in the industry, but I don't think you can let a few cases spoil it for the majority. I think we get a really bad rep. I think communication is key. I think communication is where we fall down. And I think if you were to ask any solicitor, communication is a massive thing, because that's the first thing that clients are going to complain about if it goes wrong. So as long as you've nailed the communication, then you're off to a good start. Yeah. And if you're having these conversations with your clients, then you shouldn't really get complaints. You're going to have hard conversations. You're going to have great conversations, but communication is key.
I think I completely agree. And I think having that kind of update is vital for clients to feel like, okay, things are progressing. It hasn't been forgot about. It's not been left. This is where we're at. It's being looked after and it's being taken care of. And it's when they don't get that, and then it gets to the end and everyone's rushing about and it's all a bit hectic, that's when people can get annoyed. And I've got a case in my mind that I've mentioned to you before, which was literally, it was down to the last, it had a day extension and it was down to the last 5 minutes. It was an absolute nightmare. Yeah. Guys driving to, you know, the lender's office to submit documentation because their solicitors were being a pain in the ass. But it was just like, the kind of like your heart attack experience. I'm just sitting there like, it's kill me now kind of thing. But I mean, what's been your biggest kind of personal challenge going through your career from being at university to kind of coming out? I mean, you've talked about when you were ill. I mean, and what did you do to get past it? Because I know a lot of people will be listening, and everyone can have challenges, and it's being resilient, isn't it, to get through those? And talk to me about that.
I think you never realise how truly resilient you are until you actually go through something. Yeah. And then you come out the other side and you're like, I made it. I got through that. And I think you have to really feed off that for as long as you can and just keep going. Because I think mental health is I talk about it all the time. You know, there's people in my family with mental health issues. So it's something I've always been really conscious of, and my own mental health as well over the years. And I think you notice it most when you're in work, because it does bring out stress. Stress is a huge factor. That's probably, of everything, stress is always my biggest concern. Yeah. That and the fact that my dad works in private medical insurance, and he's always like, you're going to die of stress. And I'm like, I'm not, Dad. I'm going to be fine. It's all fine. A little bit of stress is good for you. It's when it's too much. But I think you just have to keep going. Yeah. And if you've got that resilience in you, like everybody does, you've just got to find it sometimes and then just keep going, basically. And I look at the things that I've gone through in my career. I mean, I've been working in property for 7 years now, as of September just gone. I've been qualified as a solicitor for 4 years. That's such a short period of time in terms of my whole career, but I've gone through such a lot. I think we've all been hit by the pandemic massively, but that was a game changer, because that has allowed more workplaces, more law firms to completely rethink how they deal with their employees. And that's to everybody's benefit. I mean, I would never, if you'd said to me when I was newly qualified, you're going to be working from home full time, you're not going to meet any clients face to face, I would have literally been like, you're joking. That can't be real. But that's my reality now. I do everything remotely. And it's life-changing, but it gives you that work-life balance. And the support I've got from the people I work with, they've allowed me to have this amazing position that gives me time to pop out to the shops in the middle of the day, take my dog to the vet, be supportive of my partner, and it's flexible. And I think that's where people are missing out. They're not being flexible with things. And I've worked for firms that aren't flexible. They pretend they are. They sell you the dream, and then you're being micromanaged so much that you're going insane. You can't work like that, because we're all grown-ups at the end of the day. You need to treat people in a mature way and give them the flexibility to work and live, because the two overlap a lot when you do this job, because you do take things after work with you. Of course you do, if you care. Well, I'd love to know what the mind of somebody who doesn't care is like, because that just doesn't compute with me. But do you know what I mean?
Must have to be a complete psychopath. I mean, it just made me think there when you said like the personal life is blending into the work life. It reminds me of Suits with Harvey Specter and all of those, and they're kind of just blended in, and it's just one big thing, isn't it? And I guess you do need that kind of, right, this is that bit of the barrier. But I mean, you mentioned earlier about in the pandemic everyone was talking about being kind, and that's kind of lost again now. Why do you think we've lost that again?
I honestly don't know. I don't understand how, bearing in mind property, what we do, we're all striving for the same goal. Nobody gets paid unless something completes. So everyone's on the same page, but there are just some people are just a little bit more adversarial than others in how they write. And I don't know whether that's because there's a generation of keyboard warriors out there. But for me, if somebody's writing to me like that, I'll pick up the phone and ring them and be like, excuse me?
Yeah.
Do you want to say that over the phone? Because I don't think you mean it. And I do think, like I said before, you need to be great at communication. And whether that's through writing in your emails or over the phone, you need both, really. But politeness, courtesy, it's in our conveyancing protocol. It's actually written in the protocol. So you have to be courteous and polite to third parties, all parties, really. It's just a no-brainer. That's how people should be. But sometimes things come across a bit more blunt over email, I think. There's a communication barrier. I think that's where clients struggle sometimes, is sometimes somebody writes something and they don't mean it to sound a certain way, but they've not thought about how it sounds. And then they hit send, and then
it's out there, and it has
somebody up the wrong way.
No context, isn't it? It's like I'm a big fan of the phone, in person, video. Video and it's kind of this talking, right? And you can never really get that muddled or confused or lost in translation, because you're having a conversation. And I mean, I don't do a lot in writing. Just it's simply not my style, really. I'd rather have the conversation with people. So I completely get what you're saying. What trends are you currently seeing in the property market at the moment? I know over the last year, rates have gone up. We're no longer in a low rate period, and that's kind of affected the buy-to-let market quite a bit for new purchases. I mean, what is that something you're seeing your end, or?
I think the knock-on effect of that is we are seeing, I mean, I've noticed it in the last few weeks, a lot of standalone sales. So a lot of the people that have got sort of one or two additional properties, sort of the smaller scale landlords, I feel like people are selling up a bit more. And I think that is reflected. If you speak to lettings agents, they sort of say, well, at the moment it's probably a good time to start that sort of portfolio, because people need somewhere to live, and landlords have had enough. They're sort of selling up because the mortgages, and this is what I'm hearing from clients who are selling, is the mortgage is too much. We've got nobody in there. Tenants are vacated. We just need to get rid of this property. So I've noticed a lot of that. Obviously, we're still getting first-time buyers, families moving, all sorts of transactions, really. But just I have noticed sort of, I keep a little spreadsheet of all my cases, and I have noticed a few more standalone sales.
I think, now is absolutely a great time to buy. And certainly the serious investors that I've been dealing with like to buy, they're buying on bridging loans because it just works. It just makes sense for them. And on the channel, we've got a couple of case studies that are on there, which, people can go and see, but it's always, the Charles Darwin quote, isn't it? About, it's not the survival of the most fittest. It's the animal that's got the ability to change, the adaptation to change. And I think what I'm seeing is those people that were professional landlords have adapted to, okay, right, it might not work on a new purchase at 75% LTV. Right, let's look at a bridging loan, and then we can refinance it down the line. So it's interesting that you're seeing that as well. What's your biggest frustrations with clients being a conveyancing solicitor? Is it, have we exchanged yet?
Do you know what? That's not so bad. We don't see so much of that these days, because I think clients get frustrated when they don't realise that what you're doing. Most solicitors tend to do a lot behind the scenes and then not tell the clients what they're doing. And I think when you're doing that, then they don't appreciate that you're in the middle of doing something. So I think obviously the more informed they are, the better. I just love it. We sort of onboard the clients. We get all the paperwork out. I always say to them, look, it's very sort of paperwork heavy at the start because we're getting all the information out of you. Let's get all the information over. So obviously love it when people sort of, get everything back to me quickly. We get the source of funds. I think the hardest thing for us at the moment, and clients don't appreciate how many hats we have to wear, I feel like a forensic investigator in terms of people's finances at times. We're looking out for property fraud. We're always on the lookout because there's such a heavy onus on us now to suddenly stop fraud. This is not the role that I signed up for. It's,
fraud police constantly.
This is not the same conveyancing when I started how it is now. It's changed so much. So I think the biggest frustration is there is so much more for us to do. And then obviously people don't always necessarily appreciate that, and sometimes you have to sort of politely remind them, this is, I'm doing this for you. I'm also doing this for the NCA. And all the other hats that we're wearing at the same time. So we're liaising with so many different parties these days. We have such a heavy role in terms of our duty to the lender as well, as you know. So there's a lot going on. So it's, how do you explain it to the client in a way that they understand that you are acting for all these different interested parties, not just them, but their lender, the government. We're doing so much. And I think if you can try and get that across, and I think that the best way to do it is just get somebody on the phone when you get the instruction through, speak to the client, have that initial call. I love to sort of find out what my client's objectives are. Are they an investor? Are they going to put an extension on the property? These are all things that we look into then. But if you don't have that call, you don't know.
This is it. And I remember when I was in an employed role, kind of like a mentor, colleague, friend, he always used to say to me, always pick up the phone. That's some of the best advice I've ever had. Just pick up the phone. You get to the root cause. Kind of before we wrap up, I just want to know, what's your goal over the next 5 years? Personal, professional, what is it?
I think for me, just keep going. This is, honestly, I feel like I've been on such a big journey the last few years. It's been very intense. And I'm really looking forward to, I feel like I finally found my sort of forever home in the conveyancing world. I'm so happy where I am now. And I think if you can find that, and I literally was saying to somebody on the phone the other day, another solicitor, I was like, I am so comfortable where I am now in the best possible way that I just want to keep going like this. I want to be able to enjoy what I do because I am so passionate about it. That's the thing. Like, my family will tell you, if there's anything to do with property, I'll just talk property all day long, even when I'm not working. It's just, it's one of those things.
Passion.
So I think if you can enjoy what you do, stay passionate about it, because I think it has been really hard for everybody over the last few years with the pandemic and everything that we've been through. You can lose your mojo a little bit, and I've had times where I have lost that passion a bit, but I think when you can get that back and keep going, just somehow keep it going, because you see so many people who are sort of disenchanted with conveyancing. Mostly people towards the end of their career who've been doing it for 20, 25 years. I mean, if I could be doing it for that long, fantastic. That would be amazing. But keep going. My goal is obviously my family. They're very important to me. Starting a family is probably going to be my future goal in the next few years. That's amazing. We're not in a rush, but we're just comfortable and happy. And I think that's, best place I could possibly be right now.
Thank you for showing your vulnerability and the struggles that you've gone through.
I've not told anybody some of that stuff, so really, people don't know, but
really impactful. Really appreciate it.
Hopefully it helps somebody. That's why I wanted to share it with you, because I think you can always go on LinkedIn and see all these people who you think, oh, that person looks like they've just sailed through life.
Yeah.
And there's been no bumps. But you don't know. And I think my message would be, let's keep Be Kind going.
Yeah.
Because you don't know what someone's gone through. And if somebody gets on the wrong side of me, I'll be the first person to say, you don't know what someone's been through, so you need to be kind. It's so important.
Absolutely. And how can our listeners or any potential clients listening out, how can they contact you and learn more, find out more? What's the best way to get hold of you?
Oh, yeah, email, LinkedIn. I mean, there's not too many Claudia Gallos out there, to be honest. If you go on the Law Society website, you'll find me easy enough. So the perks of having a fairly unique name. So I think I'm the only one on the roll. So that's,
Thank you. Thank you for your time, Claudia.
Thanks so much, Adam.
Hey guys, hope you're enjoying the Alfa Chats podcast series. We really appreciate you watching. If you're enjoying, please subscribe. We're trying to get up to 1,000 subscribers by the end of this year, which means that the more subscribers we get, the bigger reach we have, the bigger, the better guests that we can get on. Thanks, guys.